Now that we have some practice finding the hypotheses for a two-sample t-test, let's look at the rest of the details for this test. We're going to use the phantoms framework again so that we remember and keep all of those details organized. So the P in phantoms is our parameter statement. We're working with two independent groups here. So what your statement is going to be is about the mean of one group versus the mean of the other group. H is your hypotheses, and we've looked at those, the left tail, right tail, two tail. We are setting a value to 0 for all of these in this class. You can certainly set it to something different, and that would be something you would do in a more advanced class. Our assumptions and conditions are going to stay the same, except that you have to check these assumptions and conditions for each of these separate groups. So that means for the first group, you're going to have to check the random sample, normal large, and standard deviation from the sample. And then same thing with the second group. So that's a lot of work too, if you have to pull all of that out of the data set. So to help you along, I'm going to provide the normal probability plots, and then the sample mean, sample standard deviation, and then the sample size as well. Okay, so you'll just be responsible for filling in the details and making sure you have them, but I will have provided all that work for you to work off of. So if we have these two separate groups, so when we say they're two independent groups, I have one data value for everybody in the first group, and I have one data value for everybody in the second group. Okay, so when we have that, that's a two-sample t-test. We do have a test statistic here. Don't panic. I know it looks complicated. You will not calculate this by hand. You'll have two options. You can either use those Excel spreadsheet calculators that I have set up, and that'll give you your test statistic and p-value, or there's something in the data analysis package that will do all of it for you as well, and it'll give you that test statistic and p-value. So I'll show you both of those ways, but don't panic, you will not be making that calculation by hand. As always, when you make a decision, if p is smaller than alpha, we do reject. If p is bigger, we do not reject the null. And so then you're going to state your conclusion. So an example of this might be, with a p-value of 0.04 at the 5% significance level, we do have sufficient evidence the mean height of basketball players is greater than the mean height of soccer players. Okay, so you got to use that word mean twice in there because you're talking about the mean of one group versus the mean of the other. All right, let me show you some screenshots for the two-sample T, and then when we do the first one together, I'll show you how these work out in Excel. So if you're using the data analysis package, instead of choosing that regression option, you're going to go down to the two-sample assuming unequal variances, meaning the groups have different standard deviations. Okay, and once you highlight those two columns, like we've done with the residual plots and the normal probability plots, it'll give you an output that looks like this one here that's in the middle. So you'll see I've highlighted the test statistic, and then they give you the one-tail probability and the two-tail probability. So the left or right is going to be in that one-tail category, and they'll correctly pick the right one for you. And then if you're using the spreadsheet calculators that I built, it looks like the one on the right. And so you see there's a place to put in your sample mean, sample standard deviation, and sample size for your first group. And same thing for the second group, and it'll also give you your test statistic and your p-values.